It's working okay? Yeah. And then I
네,
say
잘
hello to
보입니다.
you and all of you.
예, 한국 독자님들은 아마 혹시 처음 이렇게 뵙게 되시는 건지 궁금한데요. 예,
Yeah, no, it isn't the first time I've been interviewed by
네, 네,
Korean journalists earlier here in Norway. A couple of times. Once, quite many years ago, that was about my plays, when an anthology of plays were published
네, 네.
in Korea.
네, 너무 반갑고요. 지금 독자들이 많은 질문을 해주셔서 그 중에서 좀 선별해서 질문을 먼저 드려도 될까 싶은데요. 첫 번째 제목은 작가님의 책 제목이 너무 멋지다고 해주신 분들이 많아요. 그래서 책 제목을 정할 때 어떤 원칙 또는 제목을 정할 때 어떤 느낌으로 제목을 만드시는지 궁금하다는 질문이 올라왔습니다.
I don't want a title to say too much or to be too interpretive. I want it in a way to be open, but at the same time it must tell something crucial about a book. Sometimes, in fact, the title is the first thing that comes to me. More often, the title, yeah, I write the whole text and then I have to search for a title. And often I find a word or a line or something in the text that I can use as a title. Yes.
네, 감사합니다. 그러면 또 많은 독자들이 궁금해하시는 게 작가님이 평소에 항상 관심을 갖고 있는 중심 주제가 있다고 생각하시는데요. 모든 작품을 쓸 때 어떤 그래도 이것은 꼭 들어가야 하지 않나? 그러니까 뭐 삶과 죽음일 수도 있고요, 사랑일 수도 있고. 그래서 언제나 작품을 쓰실 때 공통적으로 관심 있는 주제. 예.
When I'm writing, I never think that way. I never think about what I'm writing about, to put it that way. I try to. Each text is its own universe, and a story develops, characters develops. If it's a play or a novel or whatever, and in the end, I've told something about something for sure. But for me to say exactly what it is, I don't know, to be honest. But of course, in my writing, as in almost all literature, love is central and death is central. So you can say that it's about love and death. And I think that's perhaps the most important in our lives. I don't write about any specific theme, like so you can narrow it. You cannot narrow my literature into a very specific theme. Yeah.
네. 그러면 이 질문도 많이 받으셨을 것 같은데 마침표가 잘 안 나오고 쉼표로 계속 이어지는 문장이 굉장히 흥미롭고도 또 재미있게 느껴지는데 이렇게 마침표를 좀 잘 안 쓰시는 이유, 쉼표를 즐겨 쓰시는 이유, 그리고 하나의 문장이 굉장히 길어지는 그 호흡을, 그런 문체를 선택하신 이유가 있다면 어떤 것이 있을까요?
When I'm writing, I feel it's an act of listening. I start writing, and if the beginning is okay, then what follows it in a way gives itself by a kind of necessity. And this necessity is very strict. It also has to do with the rhythm of the text, and how the rhythm is in a prose text to a large degree created by pauses, a comma I can use, or I can use a full stop. So it depends on the periods, how they are, and the flow of them, and the flow of the whole text. In some text, I use, let's say, in in the boathouse. I use a quite normal, as far as I remember, punctuation. In my latest novel, I don't think it's published in Korean yet. It's called Septology. It's a very long novel, at least over 1,000 printed pages, and it's in 7 parts. But there's no full stop in any of these 7 parts, so that's quite extreme. But quite often there are some commas here and there, but they are rare. Let's say in morning and night, they are rare. Yeah. So it has for me it has a lot to write well has to do with creating a rhythm. It's in a way all about rhythm, I could say. It's to say too much, but still, when I'm saying it, I feel that it is right. And in my place, then in my fiction or in my novels, I have to use comma or full stop. In my place, I don't use. I use the word pause, long pause, short pause. In place of using commas and full stops.
네. 결국 산문도 운문처럼 그 운율, 리듬이 있다는 생각이 많이 들고, 또 우리 작가님의 글 속에 굉장히 시적인 운율, 리듬이 들어있다는 생각이 드는데요. 그래서 더 작품이 소리내어서 읽으면 더 어울릴 것 같다는 생각도 듭니다. 예. 예, 잘 전달이 된 것 같고요. 그러면 다음 질문으로 넘어갈게요. 이 작가님들은 그냥 평범한 삶처럼 느끼시겠지만 독자님들이 또 제일 궁금해 하시는 것 중에 하나가 작가님의 하루는 어떨까라는 질문이거든요. 그래서 작가님의 하루는 어떻게 시작되고 또 바다와 가까이 항상 사신다고 하는데 바다 산책은 얼마나 자주 하시는지, 글은 몇 시간이나 쓰시는지, 또 책은 다른 사람의 책은 얼마나 읽으시는지, 이런 평범한 일상 루틴에 대해서도 들려주시면 좋을 것 같습니다.
You know, I've been a published writer for over 40 years, and my routines and my days have changed a lot since around 1980 and today. But what is the same is that I'm always, I need to write in the morning. I wake up and as fast as possible, I have to start writing. I go to sleep and into the state of sleep and into the state of writing, to put it that way, as directly as possible. When I was young, I slept longer in the morning than I do now. So then I started writing at 9 o'clock, perhaps, or something like that. Now I can start as early as 5 o'clock in the night writing, and write through the late night and early morning. This story, A Shining, for instance, that I know is published, it was written between 5 o'clock and in the night and 9 o'clock in the morning. The same goes for this long Septology. Back to morning and evening, it's quite many years since I wrote that novel, but I'm quite sure that I wrote it in the hours, the first hours of the day, to put it that way. To me, writing, it feels in a certain way a bit dangerous. I don't do any research or use any pre-existing material in any way. It's a journey into the unknown, and when I come back from this journey, I brought with me something that wasn't in this world before. For instance, this couple that you can meet in Trilogy, this man walking alone into the woods, as you can meet in The Shining. They were all, I had no idea about them before I wrote Trilogy and A Shining, or these two old men in Morning and Evening. They came to me when I wrote about them. And to me, after all these years of writing, that is the real magic of writing. What is happening actually when you write? Since I write that way, I feel that I need quite long breaks when I don't write. At least to write well, I need to take breaks. And in later years, when I have these pauses from my own writing, I normally translate. And I enjoy quite a lot translating. I can translate from the other Scandinavian languages and from English and German. I can read a little French and a little Latin, etc. But I cannot translate from any such language. But perhaps even from the Old Norse language, I perhaps know almost as well as that I could translate from it. Except for that, I'm writing quite often versions for the theater where I use, let's say, a Greek tragedy. I don't know all Greek at all, so I just use existing translations, several of them, and try to listen to get as close to the voice of the dramatist and the drama as possible, and write it as close to that as possible in my language, and in a way that it is possible to produce it nowadays.
네, 되게 사실 놀라웠는데요. 얘기를 들으면서 작품 속의 인물들이 이렇게 이미 마음속에서 머릿속에서 그려진 상태에서 작업하시는 것이 아니라 쓰면서 계속 만들어진다고 말씀하셔서 굉장히 놀랍고, 또 그래서 더 작품 인물들이 이렇게 살아 움직이는 생생한 느낌이 들어요. 예.
Yeah, and the situations and the universe they're living in, I somehow, it comes alive through the writing process. So in a way, you must leave yourself to go into the unknown, and it's a bit, it's in a certain way a bit scaring, or can be if I'm not too safe in my own self.
네, 그러면 이제 잠에서 깨서 바로 쓰시는 경우가 많기 때문에 때로는 꿈의 영향도 받으시는지도 궁금하거든요. 꿈의 영향에 의해서 작품 속의 인물이 뭔가 다른 말을 한다든지, 뭐 새로운 길을 걸어간다든지 그럴 수도 있을까요?
No, I wouldn't say that. To me, writing in itself, it's a kind of dreaming. So if you put a dream into a dream, it doesn't work. I've tried to do it, but it doesn't work. To write, it's a rough description, but I could say that it's a dream in a wakened state. That said, it's just the same with music. I cannot listen to any music when I'm writing myself, because what I'm writing is music in itself, and then the music I'm listening to, and out in the room, and the music, what I'm listening to, the silent music when writing, will compete in a very disturbing way. I can write in quite a noisy environment, etc., but not with music in my room, to put it that way.
글 자체가 음악이기 때문에 그렇겠군요. 네. 그러면 예, 글 자체가 음악이고, 저는 개인적으로 그 3부작이라는 작품에서, 트릴로젠인가요? 3부작에서 그 주인공이 바이올린을 연주하는 사람이잖아요. 그 바이올린 연주가 너무 듣고 싶더라고요. 작품 속에 이 사람이 대를 이어서, 아버지에 이어서 이제 남자 주인공이 바이올린을 잘 연주하는데, 또 그 얼마나 그 연주하는 소리가 아름다울지 너무 궁금했었거든요. 그러면 그 바이올린 연주도 아마 작가님의 글을 닮은 연주가 아닐까 상상해 보는데요. 어떤 느낌일까요?
Yeah, in Norway we have a special kind of fiddle called the Hardanger fiddle. It has 4 strings as a normal violin, but underneath are 4 more strings that they just vibrate when you play it and give us very specific sound to this fiddle. This fiddle comes from the same area of Norway I come from, Hardanger, and has its name from this area. And in former days in Norway, that was when you had a wedding or someone were to be buried, or you were just to organize a dance or something, you needed a fiddler. So this in former Norway, the fiddler was an important man in society. They looked up on and looked down on. He didn't do any real work in a way. He just played his music, and they were quite often quite hard drinkers. But they did at the same time that played a very important role in society. So it's this kind of music, the music of Hardanger, the Hardanger fiddle, that is behind, in a way, the music of trilogy. Or some fiddlers, I know professional fiddlers nowadays, they are friends of mine, some of them, and they say that my way of writing to them resembles what they call a slot, a tune. They're a tune for a fiddle. Other compares, and that's of course a really great honor, my writing to the music of Johann Sebastian Bach. And both this Hardanger fiddle music and the music of Bach, there are many similarities between them. The repetition, the variations of the repetitions, a kind of, at least in Bach, a strong emotionality that is not expressed, but you can feel it behind the music.
예, 제가 즉석에서 음악에 대한 질문을 드리기 너무 잘했다는 생각이 드는데요. 음악이 정말 작가님의 삶에서도 되게 중요하고 글 속에서도 굉장히 중요하다는 생각이 드는데, 제가 볼 때는 작가님의 글은 한국식으로 표현하면 한국 악기 중에 해금이라는 악기가 있잖아요, 여러분. 해금이라는 악기는 서양의 바이올린이나 첼로와 달리 그렇게 단단하게 줄이 조여져 있지 않거든요. 줄이 굉장히 연주하기를 포기한 것처럼 느슨하게 이렇게 늘어져 있는 악기예요. 그런데 연주를 하면 너무나 긴장감 넘치는 소리가 나와요. 그래서 정말 신기한 악기인데, 마치 우리 윤포세 작가님의 글도 그런 한국의 해금처럼 너무나 독특하고 변화무쌍하고 예측 불가능한 아주 연주하기 어려운 악기인데, 그런 악기처럼 멋지게 들린다고 꼭 말씀드리고 싶습니다. 이건 그냥 저의 생각이었고요.
Yeah, and from your description, it sounds like very much like the way the Hardanger fiddle is sounds or is played. It's also very difficult to play this fiddle. You have to tune it in very many different ways, and to make these 4 strings sound as they ought to. It's very difficult, but it's very beautiful and very intense when someone really know how to play it. So I guess we are talking about quite similar kind of music. Yeah.
네, 이렇게 작가님의 이야기를 들으니까 더 작가님의 삶과 작품이 우리와 조금이라도 가까워지는 느낌이 들어서 참 좋은데요. 또 어떤 독자님들은 이 작가님의 작품과 함께 나이 들어가는 느낌이 너무 좋다고, 작가님의 책에서 위로를 많이 받고 공감을 많이 느낀다고, 꼭 감사하다고 전해주셨어요. 그래서 정작 이렇게 우리에게 위로와 공감을 나눠주시는 작가님은 무엇으로부터 위로를 받는지, 책 이외에 다른 취미 활동 같은 것은 있으신지, 작가님의 어떤 힘의 원천, 위로의 원천 이런 것은 무엇인지 궁금하다고 질문해 주셨습니다.
First of all, I would like to greet this lady, and I'm really thankful if my literature can comfort human beings. It's not necessarily so entertaining to read read my novels or see my plays, but if they can comfort someone in a way, then that makes me happy. I myself, I'm a reader myself, and I'm not really interested in that many things, but as already mentioned, as a child I grew up by the Hardanger Fjord, and also partly in a town called Haugesund, or close to it, by the North Sea. Now I've lived quite many places over the years. Now I'm living in the central. I'm sitting in the center of Oslo, and the fjord is quite a bit from here. I also partly live in Austria, outside Vienna, but I can see Donau there, but that's it. But on the western coast of Norway, I still keep two places very close to the sea, and I also keep a boat. But I'm a very unpractical man, and to manage to have a boat of a certain size, it's quite demanding. So I manage with help from my oldest son, to put it that way, to say the truth. The sea comforts me. Yeah.
네. 바다는 되게 변화무쌍하고 때로는 예측 불가능하기도 하고 작가님의 작품처럼 좀 무섭기도 하고 그러면서도 또 한없이 넓고 깊은 그 존재에서 우러나오는 여유나 또 위로 같은 것을 느낄 수도 있을 것 같아서 작가님의 작품 자체가 바다를 닮았다는 생각이 듭니다.
I think they are in a way, and this has to do with my growing up by the sea, very close to the Hardanger Fjord. Always the sound of the waves, the water going up and down. You have the tide, high flow, low flow, as we said it. The rhythm of the sea. I simply grew up with it, and since one of my best memories from my childhood was when my father and I went out in a quite small wooden boat to fish in the evenings, and stayed out in this boat until it got dark. And it was getting dark, and we are getting back to the land in our small boat. So I think it's such experiences are or can be very formative for a person, and at least they were it for me.
예. 그리고 또 작가님의 작품을 보면 소설뿐만이 아니라 희곡이라든지 다양한 장르를 창작하셨는데 이렇게 장르를 이렇게 넘나들면서 이렇게 다채로운 작품을 이렇게 만들 수 있는 어떤 동기라고 할까요? 힘의 원천이라고 할까요? 그런 것이 있다면 무엇일까요? 다양한 장르 사이에 어떤 재미있는 차이가 있을까요?
Yeah, I started out writing poetry, as I guess most writers. That's the case for most writers, I guess. And I wrote at an early age also small stories. I started around 12 years old, and then my first published book, it was a novel. I wrote it at 20. It was published when I was 23. By then I had written quite a lot of poems already, and they were published a couple of years. A collection of poetry was published a couple of years later. So since then, since the beginning, I just kept on writing both poetry and fiction or novels. And of course, it's very a poem and a novel. They are very different in a way. But more or less, I think I have the ability to write both poetry and novels. plays came later. I was asked or commissioned to write a play. I wasn't really interested in theater, but I tried to make a living as a free writer, and I was offered to me, quite a lot of money just to write the beginning and a synopsis of the rest of a play. Then I wrote a synopsis of literature. It's just stupidity. It's like a synopsis of music. So I wrote through a whole play, and that was a great experience in my life as a writer, because I really liked to write in that way, that it was possible to use the silence that I've always been using both in my poems, in my fiction. It was very easy to use it in a way. I could simply use this word pause or silence, long silence, short silence. You cannot do that in a novel, of course. You need to create this silence in quite another way. For instance, by repetitions. So when I wrote this first play of mine, I felt that I took something from writing poetry, and something I've learned from writing poems, and something I've learned from writing novels. And put these two elements together, and then I had a kind of theatrical language. The first play I wrote, it's also my most famous play, Somebody Will Come. It's also translated into English as Somebody Is Going to Come. And I wrote it in 93, I think it was. And that became quite a success. And the play is produced in many, many countries. It's, I don't know how many, in fact. Then I've written quite many plays over the years, and many of them are produced quite a lot. So then I, at a certain point, decided that I had enough of the theater, and decided to stop writing for the theater and just go back to where I came from, writing poetry and fiction. And then the first I wrote after I quit writing for the theater, it was a trilogy. And then I wrote this long septology. Morning and evening, I wrote in between writing all these plays. And Melancholy, I wrote before I started writing for the theater. And when I finished that novel, it was really hard to write. And I had this feeling that I couldn't manage to write another novel. And luckily enough, then I had this request to write this play I've been talking about, and started writing plays. After 15 years, it was enough. And then I went back to writing fiction and poetry. And at the time being, after I finished septology, I wrote the first A Shining. Then I wrote a play based on A Shining called Inside the Dark Wood, or something like it. That had its world premiere a year ago in Bergen, the second biggest town of Norway. And the coming Thursday, another play will have its world premiere here in Oslo. It's called something like Every Man. So when after this long break, 15-year long break too, I started writing plays again. So I've written, I think it's 5 plays after this long pause of 15 years from writing for the theater. So by now I don't want to plan that much. I write prose, or I write a play, or if a poem occurs or happens to me, then of course I write it down.
네. 작가님의 그 작품 창작의 역사를 들어보면 마치 파도에 밀물과 썰물처럼 계속 소설에서 시로 또 희곡으로 계속 뭔가 밀물과 썰물처럼 왔다 갔다 하시면서 본인도 모르게 서로에게서 어떤
Anyway,
동력을 얻고 계시는 것 같다는 느낌이 들어서 또 희곡은 희곡만의 매력이 있고 또 소설이나 시는 또 그쪽의 매력이 있는 것이 아닐까. 서로가 서로에게 좀 휴식이 되어주는 것 같기도 해서 재밌는 것 같습니다. 아까 이 작가님의
yeah,
작품 세계를 통해서
in my,
네,
to me, a
네.
poem
네.
and a play aren't
네.
that different. A poem needs, in my opinion, a kind of strong intensity, and a play, perhaps even a strong intensity. It doesn't need a lot of action, but intensity is needed in a play. So in the years I wrote mainly for the theatre, I wrote some prose, a little, but just a little, but I didn't write any poems at all. So it was first when I stopped writing for the theatre that I started writing poems again. The novel is, to me at least, something else. I don't know how to describe it. It's when I stopped writing, I can try to explain it this way. When I decided to stop writing for the theatre, I wanted to write what I called or imagined as slow prose. That a kind where you can use very long movements. You can write 15 pages, for that matter, about a glass of water. You cannot do any such in a play. So, yeah, and to me, it was really. I had a good time when I went back to writing novels again. Or prose. So I think to have the ability to change between the genres the way I do it makes the life of a writer much easier in a certain way. When I was fed up with the novel after writing Melancholy, I could write a play. I wasn't fed up of prose after written this long septology. I immediately wrote The Shining, and I've even written some more novels after that, and one more play that will be produced next year. So, and some poems in between. It's always been like that. I don't sit down and intend or try to write the poem. It just happens. I feel, oh no, I have this feeling that I'm close to a poem, and then I write it down, and then I collect these poems, and after some years, might have, or perhaps have enough poems to publish a collection. But it can take quite many years between each collection of poetry. I guess it's now almost 10 years since my last collection was published, and before that it was 9 years between the two collections with poetry.
네. 아까 작가님의 작품에서 위로받으셨다는 그 독자분이 계셔서 저도 어떤 순간에 위로를 받나 생각을 해봤더니 그 아침 그리고 저녁이라는 작품에서 우리 모두가 죽음을 두려워하잖아요. 그런데 이런 죽음이라면 좀 덜 무섭겠다라는 생각이 드는 장면이 있었어요. 그게 뭐였냐면 너무나 친하게 지냈던 옛 친구가 내가 이제 죽을 때 마중 나와주는 저승 어느 곳에서 멀리서 내가 죽을 때를 대비해서 옛날에 먼저 죽은 친구가 나를 마중 나와주는 장면이 있잖아요. 그 장면이 너무 감동적이었어요. 그래서 내가 사랑하는 사람이, 나에게 매우 소중했던 사람이 나를 마중 나와준다면 죽음이 그렇게 지금 생각하는 것처럼 두렵지만은 않겠구나라는 생각이 들어서 아침 그리고 저녁을 읽으면서 죽음에 대한 공포를 좀 잠시나마 극복했다고 할까요? 예, 그래서 그런 순간에 작가님의 작품에서 위로를 얻는 것 같아요. 그래서 그런 작품을 써주셔서 너무 감사하다고 저는 개인적으로 말씀드리고 싶었습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you a lot. When I had written Morning and Evening, I thought the same. I know a lot of people are really afraid of dying, and I thought that if you read this novel, you don't get more of, at least you don't get more afraid of dying. Yeah, I think that's true. As you say, and I hope at least that several people can feel it that way or experience the novel that way, that it takes away some of the fear of dying. A book like Shining is also, of course, about a kind of last journey. And I don't think you get more afraid of dying after having read A Shining.
예. 또 3부작을 읽다 보면 3부작에서는 죽은 남편이 계속 아내에게 말을 거는 듯한 장면이 나오잖아요. 그래서 그렇게 계속 사랑하는 사람이 나에게 말을 걸어준다면 그것도 죽음이 좀 덜 두렵겠구나. 우리가 죽었다고, 물리적으로는 죽었지만 우리가 계속 그 사람을 사랑하고 기억하고 그 사람과 계속 대화를 나눌 수 있다면, 그러면 죽음과 삶은 그렇게 멀리 떨어져 있는 것만은 아니겠다라는 생각이 들어서 그 작품도 굉장히 무섭다가 중간에 계속 굉장히 무섭다가 마지막으로 갈수록 위안이 되고 위로가 되는 작품이었습니다.
Yeah, it's true what you are saying, that the limit between the dead and the living aren't that great in my writing. And I can't explain why it's like that. I can't explain my writing in any way, or I don't want to explain it either. And I do not even want to interpret my own writing. But it's true. It's that the way your description is true. He is talking to her when after that, when they have a conversation together in trilogy, and the same also, of course, the last part of morning and evening, the evening part or that part. It's to a large degree about the relation between two close friends, and one of them is dead, and most likely in the novel both of them are dead, or the other one is at least dying. And so it's also in my place. They often take place in a kind of, to use that word, a kind of limbo, somewhere in between life and death.
예. 그러면 그 샤이닝의 인물들이 맨발로 등장하는 것은 또 어떤 의미가 있는지도 독자분이 물어보시는데요. 맨발로 등장하는 이유가 있을까요? 샤이닝의 인물이?
I guess there must be a reason. But because each and every element in my writing, it needs to have a necessity behind it. But for me to explain this necessity, or give it a reason that I cannot do, and I do not want to do it, because then I'm trying to understand my own writing, and I feel that that's not my task. My job is to write, and then it's up to others to understand it the way they want, in a way. It's just like a fiddler or one playing. You just play your music and you can take it or like it or dislike it or interpret it or whatever, the way you want.
네. 그러면 이제 마지막 두 질문만 드리고 마무리하려고 하는데요. 작가님의 작품에는 항상 죽음에 대한 이야기가 나오는데, 이 작가님은 아주 어릴 때부터 죽음의 위험을 한번 보셨다고 들었어요. 그래서 죽음과 삶이 아주 가까이 있다고 아까 말씀하셨는데, 작품에서도 그렇고요. 그러니까 삶과 죽음이 작가님에게는 어떤 느낌으로 계속 뭐랄까요, 말을 걸어오는지, 삶과 죽음이라는 주제가 작가님에게는 어떤 소중한 의미를 갖고 있는지 일단 마지막으로 질문드리고 싶고요. 또 진짜 마지막 질문은 한국의 독자들에게
I guess it's much almost has the same meaning for me as it has to you who are asking this question, and to all of us. We are here a short space of time. That's more or less all we know. We don't know where we came from, and for certain, the only thing we are certain about is that we are going to die, disappear. And in this, of course, it's so because I'm writing about. Even if I'm writing fiction in a way, I'm trying to write in a very true way. I'm trying to write the truth. And if you don't write about love and death, you are in a way cheating or lying. You can lie. As a crime fiction is to me a kind of lie. You try to reduce that to a kind of riddle that is going to be solved by a bright guy or a bright lady. So you want to you try to reduce the reality of that to a riddle, and it isn't that simple, to put it that way.
네. 그러면 오늘이 세계 책의 날이기도 하대요. 그래서 한국 독자들에게 또 독서를 응원해 주시는 말씀 한마디 해주셨으면 좋겠고요. 제가 아까 너무 떨려서 제 이름을 소개 못 드렸어요. 예, 제 이름은 작가이고 저는 정여울이라고 하고 순 한글 이름인데 빠르게 흐르는 물이라는 뜻입니다. 예, 그래서 항상 물처럼 흘러가는 이 작가님의 작품을 계속 응원하며 열심히 읽겠다고 말씀드리고 싶고요. 한국 독자들에게 한번 독서를 응원하는 말 해주셨으면 좋겠습니다.
And then we have about the same meaning of our surname. Fosse, the word fosse, a fosse is a waterfall. Water falling from a mountain down.
네.
And it's this it's dative, it's the place close to such a waterfall. Water falling often, of course, fast. No, I will say that if you want
제
to read,
이름하고 뜻이 비슷하시네요.
if you don't want to read, you don't have to read. It's up to you. And
멋지십니다.
and you can.
멋지셔요.
And if you start reading a book and you don't like it, it's very easy. You can just put it away. It's worse going to the theater when you are sitting there. It's hard to, or at least for me, hard to just walk out of the auditorium. So, and I think for quite many people, reading will, it will give them something that feels important to them, and it will make life richer. You will understand more. Each and every great writer, in my opinion, makes me see life in a new way. It changes my view of life, and it makes you understand how it is to live for a human being that is not yourself. That goes for all novels, I think. At least all the great novels. So you broaden. You can, of course, you can travel and broaden your view of life. But in a deeper, you broaden it. In fact, in a deeper sense by reading, I think. And it changes you, if it's good or strong literature, in a deep and stronger way.
네. 좀 더 강력한 방식으로 삶을 느끼는 방식이라는 게 정말 너무 공감이 되고, 어떨 때는 우리가 책을 너무 좋아하면 그 작가를 직접 만나면 실망할까봐 되게 걱정을 하게 되는데, 우리 작가님은, 연포세 작가님은 작품과 너무 비슷하시고, 또 작품을 뛰어넘어 굉장히 유머러스 하시고, 또 온라인으로 만나 뵀지만 너무 재밌었어요. 재밌고, 우리의 좀 약간 정말 너무 단순한 질문조차도 너무나 성심성의껏 정성스럽게 농담도 너무 잘해주시고 이렇게 대답을 해주셔서 정말 삶과 글이 너무 닮아 있는 그런 작가라는 생각이 들어서 더더욱 언제 한번 한국에 진심으로 꼭 오셨으면 좋겠고, 한국에 오시면 한국의 독자뿐만이 아니라 또 한국에서 멋진 글쓰기의 주제도 찾으실 수 있지 않을까라고, 예, 꼭 한국으로 오셨으면 좋겠다는 생각을 하면서 이쪽 가서 인사드려야 되는데 잘 안 보이실까봐. 예, 너무 감사하고요. 또 우리 독자님들도 이렇게 손 흔들어 주시고, 예, 윤포세 작가님의 다음 작품을
hello.
열렬하게 기다리도록
All the
하겠습니다.
best to all of you.
네, 감사합니다.
From my chair and my table in Oslo. Bye bye to you all.
네, 감사합니다.